So this is an instruction for the sewing bands for the to-go cups. First, I took the large section of material and I cut according to this template, which is already cut out with a little bit of a berth all the way around it. I found that if you do exactly to its dimensions, it does get to be just a little bit tight. And then you'll see in a few minutes when we have to cut our elastic that I pull it to this 8 1/4 inch marker, but I make sure that I don't stretch it before I cut it. I'll show you right now before I put it together. And you bring it all the way to the edge and then you just lay it gently. You don't pull it and then cut, because obviously then you'll have a much smaller piece than you're expecting. Alright, so the first step is to sew this yellow piece with the inside out part together. That way we can pull it through in a few minutes and it will have a nice finished edge. So I line up the two sides nice and flush, and then I generally use 6 pins. You can use as many as you feel like you need. And I do them horizontally. If you do them vertically, your needle will not be able to go all the way through.
You want to show her what I did over there? When I was helping you, I put the marks. So you could put that on top of here and then just stick the needle through.
Right.
And then pull it all up and then kind of fasten them a little better.
That's very true.
But this is still good.
To make it evenly distributed. So yeah, what he was just saying right here was you can stick this on here and then you can put a pin at every 2-inch mark if you'd like. And you just sort of like stick it in. You stick it in like this. And then when you pull them all up, they're in.
And you just secure them better.
So, if you'd like to do that. So then, when you come to the machine, I've obviously got the yellow thread through the machine, the yellow bobbin in there, and then my thread already pulled through. So, there's markers here on either side of the needle, and there's a 1/2 inch mark over here to the right of the needle. And generally you want to keep your material at or a little bit to the right of the 1/2 inch mark in order to have a good size seam. You don't want to leave it too narrow because then it might pull with the stress on it, but at the same time you don't want it so thick that you can't fit your elastic through. So you don't want to be so much over here that your elastic won't be able to fit in this section, but you don't want it to be too narrow that it will pull and there will be holes in your seam. And this will be especially important with your second seam that I'll be explaining in a minute. So I start off with a reverse stitch just to secure the one side, and I'll do that at the same at the end just because I know that these get a lot of wear and tear. So I start off with a reverse seam for just a couple of stitches. And then I situate the needle and I go forward. Get to the end again, I do my reverse stitch. Alright, pull it out and cut it. Alright.
Do you have to take the needles out as you go? Or
you don't have to, it depends on your sewing machine. I generally like to, just so that if my needle won't break if it hits it, but again, you don't have to. All right, so now you have your seam. You've cut your spare threads like these guys I like to cut. That way there's no scragglies. All right, and then you take a large safety pin, and I'll have even some bigger ones for you. I misplaced mine this morning in the move. So you put the safety pin in this direction and you turn it into the material so that you can feel the butt of the safety pin, and then you inch it through like a caterpillar. And once it gets to the other side, you just hold on to that head, and you slowly pull it out. I found that if you pull it out from the outside edge and then you pull out this side, it pulls a lot easier. And then just a second, it just takes some working sometimes. There it is. And so then you've got it nice and inside out, right side out. You can remove your pin. We'll be using these again later. Okay. And then something that Karis's mom showed me, which is really useful, is using a pencil or a pair of chopsticks. And if you look down into the center of this tube, I guess, the seam is stuck together. And if it stays stuck together like that, then it has a tendency to sort of get in the way a little bit of the elastic. So dividing the seam so that it lays flat if possible, you sort of press it down with your fingers as you lay it flat. So it does this, ends up making it a little bit more finished. So you can feel when it lumps up as you go down, and you continue to just sort of work it out so that it lays nice and flat. And you do want this in the middle, not on the edge. So you're working towards this being nice and flat in the middle. Okay. So I've just about got it. And if you don't get it all the way, that's okay. The idea is you're giving that influence for it to be nice and flat. Okay, so once that is nice and in the middle, you can grab your elastic, which you've cut. And as you can tell, it's a lot shorter than this section. You'll be sewing a seam into this, which will cut off quite some of this at least. And then on top of that, it'll also sort of scrunch up. Anyway, you'll see. So I put a pin on this side of the elastic and a pin on this side of the elastic. And I put it a little bit deep in so that it doesn't pull the elastic away. That's happened to me a couple of times. And then you just sort of let it fall and you work it through. So once you get to where this pin is sticking out and nothing else, you want to put it in just a little bit so that the black isn't going to be showing. And then you just want to hold on to that nice and firmly as you work the rest of your elastic through. Actually, I guess I don't hold on to that. I hold on to this pin more. And I inch it through first. Once I grab this pin, then I guess I hold on to this and I pull the material over the elastic. Like that. Okay, so the black is still not showing on this side, black isn't showing on this side, but it has a tendency to inch back through. There we go. Alright, so once you have it at this point, something that I do that has been really helpful is getting a straight pin, and on one side just securing that so that you don't have to constantly be holding that, and then this side just sort of getting it situated for sewing. So I take the safety pin out, and we've got this side, and then I'd get a straight pin, and I'd do the same thing with this one. Black showing a little bit. Okay. So what we're doing is we're doing the final seam, which I gotta say, with somehow my machine has a tendency to be a little finicky with it. Your machine might do the same thing just because it's a lot of material to sew through. It's also the most important seam, because this is the seam that's going to get the most wear and tear on it from going around the to-go cup. Alright, so notice that I'm putting the seam on the outside. Again, we want a nice finished look, so the seam stays on the outside of the band because we're going to turn inside out, right side out. Okay, I have to feel for where that elastic is. This is important because if you're going to sew where the elastic is not, then the elastic is going to bounce right inside, and then you're going to lose it, and it's going to be frustrating, and you're going to have to seam rip it all. So if you want to even pull the black down just a little bit more so it's barely showing, you can always cut the black elastic back. So you see it's just barely showing there on the end. Alright, so now I feel for where that elastic is. I go back to my 1/2 inch mark, and this is where I would probably even go in a little bit and make sure that these two sides are flush. These sides right here on this side as well as on this side. You go in, and I go about 1/3 of the way in, because I'm going to be doing a reverse stitch on both sides quite significantly. I almost go...
What do you mean 1/3 of the way in?
1/3 of the way down on here is where I start for a reverse stitch, and then I'm going to go forward all the way, and then I'm going to come back almost the whole length of this third as well. So it's going to be like reverse stitch for quite a bit on both sides so that it's really secure. Okay. Alright, and actually a special note about this is that I do a reverse stitch right over the edge so that it sort of fuses the two sides together. And I'll show you that again in just a second. And so then I have to bring the needle back over the material and continue. Okay, once I get to the edge here, then I do reverse stitch again. Alright, so I bring it out, and now is the final test of making sure that this is actually going to work. So I cut off any spare threads. And once all of these threads are cut, we get to turn it right side out and put it around the to-go cup that Karis gave it a test. And if it passes that test, then that's good. My little girl just woke up. So we just inch that around the band like so, turn it right side out. This is the to-go cup sample. Put my pins in there. And I'll have pins and everything, the template, the to-go cup, everything for you to have as reference. One last thing is normally I will iron these guys down on both sides just to give it, again, a bit more of a finished look. And if there's a little jaggedy part like this, I like to cut that off, just because, yeah, again, people are going to see this. You want it to look nice, so making it nice and crisp and straight is good. And then again, ironing it at the end. Okay, so you lay those flat, turn it right side out, make sure that it's sort of evenly distributed material, and then you test it. Sometimes it is a bit tight. Okay.
Would you say that that's tight?
This is a little bit tight, but
Can you show her what tight looks like? Like as in pull it away and like a gauge.
So this is a little bit tight, simply, but it's not so tight that you can't get it on the cup. But maybe next time I would just bring in this last seam a little bit closer to the needle so that it's not quite as wide of a seam. But I would say that this one fits, and it will actually loosen up a little bit as you do it a couple more times as well. But that's it. That's pretty much a tutorial.